Dearest reader, this author brings an exciting announcement, which is that after months of teasing, I will be delivering the goods. An entire video about the incomparable of the Bridgerton family, the second eldest son, Benedict Bridgerton. However, to all esteemed members of the audience, I must insist that all discussions of books 3 onward be kept out of the comments section, so as to not spoil the surprises hidden within their pages to this author or any others hoping to keep the first-time viewings of new seasons as astonishing as possible. Yours truly, Lady Genevieve. Benedict Bridgerton has been living rent-free in my head for months. So of course, he needed to have his own video. Originally, I had thought I would just focus my attention on his run in Season 2 of Bridgerton, seeing as how that was the season that really won me over in regards to the show, the Bridgerton world, and specifically him as my favorite of the entire Bridgerton family. Season 2 was the season I had rewatched multiple times, largely because of how gripping Kate and Anthony's love story was. But the more I rewatched this season, the more I came to realize that I had been sleeping on Benedict Bridgerton's many charms, and I owed him a much closer inspection. But I needed to do my due diligence. Season 1 was not as fresh in my mind, meaning I had to revisit it and see what little details I might have missed about the ongoing lead up to his season, which at the time of making this video is still years away. It's fine. I'm coping very well with the delay.
Low point. Low point.
Let's go through a few of the main talking points of Benedict's character material in Season 1. Overall, he doesn't have as much of a character arc in these first 8 episodes that can fully command the audience's attention to the degree that the main couples of each season have, or even the people who are next up, such as Anthony's drama with Sienna in Season 1 before his starring role in Season 2, or Colin and Penelope's falling out in the lead up to Season 3. But now that we have 2 seasons worth of material for Benedict, if you revisit Season 1, you can observe how certain things have been gradually built and established that form a trajectory of sorts that will hopefully become more prominent in Season 3, presuming that we're following the pattern of greater focus being put on characters the season before they get to be in a season's main love story. Clearly, I am clamoring for him to be front and center in Season 4.
You just touched me.
No, I didn't.
You just
made
touched
me
me.
touch you.
Don't,
No. This is your side. This is your side. Don't touch.
One of the most superficially noticeable and enjoyable traits of Benedict is his propensity for making faces, or perhaps mostly one face in particular. I noticed it a lot more in Season 2, but he was already doing this in Season 1. It's a nice detail that expresses a distinct flavor of humor and playfulness for him as a character, but I also love that him pulling these faces is a means of giving him more opportunity to express himself when he's not always being given as many lines as I would like for him to have. In the premiere episode of Bridgerton, there is an important world-building detail that offers greater insight into how Benedict's worldview is shaped regarding his place in society. Season 1 is largely focused on Daphne's efforts to secure a good marriage match that eventually morphs into a love story with Simon. Anthony, as the firstborn son of the Bridgerton family, takes it upon himself to vet Daphne's potential suitors when she is beginning to explore her options. Anthony is less than favorable in his feedback of the various men around her, and there are a couple of lines of his that are important to take note of.
Now, Mr. Worthington's second son we shall find better. We shall not have you making love with a poet, heaven forbid.
On a more light-hearted note, there is something incredibly funny in hindsight about Anthony Bridgerton being so against poets when it is in fact Benedict expressing himself as a poet in season 2 that impresses Antony and in turn helps Antony learn to become a poet, in the sense that Antony becomes incredibly verbally expressive about his romantic and sexual feelings for Kate.
Do you think that there is a corner of this earth that you could travel to far away enough to free me from this torment? All I find myself thinking about, all I find myself being able to breathe for, is you.
On a more insidious note, this line about a second-born son not being good enough for Daphne is a clear declaration that the Bridgerton world is one that is deeply drenched in classism. The classism of Bridgerton is a pillar of the stories existing in the form that they do. Women need to find a husband or else they could end up homeless on the street. A monarch is presented as a nuanced human being instead of a violent colonial parasitic entity, and many of the working class characters, such as Madame de la Croix, Will, or Theo, are treated as secondary within the show's narrative, as they are never granted the same opportunities to live as freely as the more wealthy characters, because so much of their time and energy has to go into working, lest their lives fall to pieces. All this to say that even though Benedict is an incredibly privileged character, in that he comes from a well-respected, elite, high-born family of the time, even he will be seen as lesser in the Regency market of potential suitors simply because he is second-born. When we first meet Benedict, we see that he exists in a peculiar place of in-betweenness, where he is naive to his own privilege, but he is also lacking the validation or encouragement to embrace his best qualities or pursue his passions. This brings us to his affinity for art. Eloise is the one who pushes him to pursue this passion because he has the privilege to freely do so, whereas women do not have the same opportunities to pursue any type of formal or higher education in a general public sense the way that men do.
If you enjoy drawing but need practice, then practice. Hire a drawing master.
Eloise wants a different life, something that is more than what society's rules allow her to have, and Benedict feels the same.
I truly believe I am quite capable of something more, even when I am not allowed to have anything else.
I would say that you're not the only one.
I love Benedict and Eloise's scenes together in season 1, and it's a real shame we didn't get to see more of them interacting in season 2, but clearly the show was already crammed, so they made their cuts to character material and character interactions where they saw fit, and prioritized other things.
Stop. Stop talking.
Eloise is simultaneously checking Benedict's privilege as a man in a misogynistic society, but also encouraging him to pursue his art when no one else in his family is seemingly doing so. The other character who offers that dual approach of checking privilege and offering encouragement is Mr. Granville. He is a man who has found success as an artist, and after an embarrassing introduction...
Given the quality, I do wonder why the piece was not skied with the other daubs.
A few moments later.
Mr. Granville, why was your piece not skied?
Mr. Granville encourages Benedict to pursue his art and invites him to his art studio, where he also offers some insight into the unexpected benefits of being a second-born son.
Heirs have the responsibility. Second sons have the fun. So, why not go have some fun?
But on one occasion of Benedict attending Mr. Granville's adult parties, he accidentally catches Granville hooking up with his lover, Mr. Weatherby. A lot about how Benedict handles this revelation gives me the same vibes as that one student you meet at uni who grew up in a very sheltered or conservative household, and they've either never met a person of color before, or they've never met a queer person before, or both. If you've been to university and met one of those types of people who are at best oblivious and at worst bigoted, you'll probably know that it's an experience, to say the least. To Benedict's credit, though, he displays a great capacity for empathy, and he assures Mr. Granville that he will maintain discretion about what he walked in on.
The other night.
What happened the other night? I do not believe anything happened at all.
However, Benedict also demonstrates an out-of-touch, privileged perspective when he questions Mr. Granville about his being married to a woman when he is in love with Mr. Weatherby.
What is the advantage for the young ladies Lord Weatherby is courting? Or do they also share this understanding? What about honor? Romance?
Mr. Granville has to explain to Benedict that he is in a lavender marriage, and by proxy, he is also explaining to the audience about the severity of the danger that queer people face in the Bridgerton universe.
Stealing your glances, disguising your touches. We cannot so much as smile at each other without first ensuring no one else is watching.
If two men can't so much as smile at each other or look too fondly at one another without the risk of experiencing violence, then clearly the misogyny of the Regency premise is not the only bit of historical accuracy that the show is maintaining in its world building. I do see Benedict as a deeply romantic character, but I also think that he has yet to experience that great epic love of his life the way that Mr. Granville has, which makes sense because Benedict has not had his season yet. I get the sense that the show is going to go for that angle of all the songs, poems, and paintings about love making sense to Benedict in a whole new way once Benedict finally falls in love, and that it will either coincide with or directly facilitate a significant creative breakthrough for him as an artist. His love interest will be his muse. The other significant detail I noticed that was recurring through what little material Benedict had in season 1 was that his large capacity for empathy was repeatedly extended to the working class. Despite my best efforts and repeated disclaimers to people to not spoil the books to me, because I don't want to read any of them until after I watch the specific season that has been adapted from them, which means that so far I have only read the first 2 books of the Bridgerton series. People have already ruined the surprise to me that Benedict's endgame love interest in his book is working class. I really wish I didn't know this, because for one, the surprise has been ruined, and 2, few things hype me up more in films or television series than things like uprisings against or scathing indictments of capitalism or imperialism or both.
And I will not stand in front of this third-rate orchestra playing for these bourgeois pigs.
But the bell cannot be unrung, and I now know that Benedict's love interest is working class. As such, there is no way for me to go into a Benedict season without a whole array of expectations about how the show will address those issues in the commentary of their love story.
I hate to break it to you, but I'm gonna.
I don't think I'm going to particularly like the politics of it, to be honest. I don't think Bridgerton is a show that has the right premise to be able to deliver class commentary in a way that truly excites me. The fun part of watching Bridgerton for me is the romance, the drama, and the comedy. It is not the type of art I personally look to for complex or interesting socio-political commentary about class inequality. But all this to say, once the surprise has been ruined and you know that Benedict's endgame love interest is working class, you cannot watch season 1 without seeing how much foreshadowing there is about that specific point. Out of everyone in his extremely privileged family, he is consistently the most empathetic person towards the working class. We see this in episode 1 when his family is speculating on the identity of Lady Whistledown, and Anthony says, in all his elite bourgeoisie glory,
And for all we know, Whistledown may be some interloper living in Bloomsbury, of all places.
this prompts Comrade Benedict Bridgerton to speak up.
What should be so terrible about Bloomsbury? That the people there actually work for a living.
In episode 3, he asks Eloise if she is Lady Whistledown, and assures her that he would be supportive.
You'd have my full support and admiration either way, sister. So? Is it you?
But he is also very cognizant of how dangerous it would be for a person, and presumably especially for a woman, to be rallying against the status quo in the ways that Lady Whistledown does.
She must hide away and publish under a false name.
Yes, because if anyone knew who Whistledown truly was, she'd be strung up for what she said.
That is not my point.
In episode 5, he strikes up an affair with Madame Delacroix, And instead of just keeping her hidden in the shadows like a different Bridgerton brother, after spending more time with her and enjoying her company, he starts to stick up for her more, such as in episode 8 when he scolds Eloise for seemingly judging Madame Delacroix for being working class.
You will not do what you did the other morning ever again. Do you understand, Eloise?
Benedict doesn't know that Eloise isn't actually judging her in that way, and she is instead hypothesizing that Madame Delacroix may be Lady Whistledown, but the sentiment on Benedict's part is still sweet.
You mean visiting my new acquaintance, Madame Delacroix?
She's not your...
I was wrong about her, brother. She's wonderful. You have nothing to worry about.
I was not worried about anything.
Not worried about what?
He also tells Antony about his seeing her, and is surprised to find that Antony is more accepting than he might have anticipated Antony to be.
Good for you, brother. You deserve contentment, we all do. If the lady contributes to that, then I'm happy for you.
That's probably also foreshadowing for Antony, and by extension the larger Bridgerton family, to accept Benedict's love interest in his season, but also demonstrates Benedict's growth already starting before he meets his endgame. It's sort of like a test drive for him of what it's like to pursue an honest, earnest interest in someone who has plenty of admirable qualities but happens to be from the working class, which all of us viewers should know is not a good enough reason to throw away a relationship. The society he lives in may say that's a bad thing, but society is wrong, and he should do what Mr. Granville said and have the courage to live outside the traditional expectations of society.
We live on a constant threat of danger, Bridgerton. I risk my life every day for love.
I miss you, Benny Boo 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 Boo.
It takes courage to live outside the traditional expectations of society.
Overall, I think season 1 for Benedict is largely about introducing him and his starting point as a character, which shows him feeling like he lacks the freedom to make his life his own. A clear example of this can be seen in the lead up to Antony's duel with Simon. Benedict was fresh off of just starting to venture out and explore his interest in creating art when Antony comes barreling home saying that he's got to duel Simon and insisting that Benedict be his second, and no matter the anticipated outcome, Benedict was going to get thrust into being the firstborn. Either Antony would win the duel, and he would have to go on the run as a fugitive, or Antony would lose the duel and die. Benedict would then have to take on all of those Viscount responsibilities for their very large family, and there would be little to no time for his artistic endeavors. I would be very interested to know how much or little Luke Thompson internalized that brush with the death of Benedict's dreams in his approach to playing Benedict as a character, but from the few interviews I've watched of Luke about being on the show, he doesn't seem to get asked very many interesting questions about Benedict as a character. Netflix, so help me if you don't let me on the junket so I can speak to this man.
Why? Why am I surrounded by these dramatic people all the time? Why?
In general, I think Benedict is really overlooked by people. His family overlooks him and takes him for granted, except for when things are in total disarray, and then there is no denying that Benedict is the most stable and reliable person. That's why Antony, despite treating Sienna like his dirty little secret, trusted Benedict enough to ask him to look after her if Antony were to lose the duel.
In the top drawer of my desk, you shall find the name of a lady. If I die, you must ensure she is provided for. Do you swear?
Benedict, I swear.
And sometimes I can't tell if the writers are deliberately sleeping on him because they're preoccupied with showing their favoritism to everyone else, or if the dysfunctionality and messiness of other characters just leads to them sucking all the oxygen out of the room so people forget to give Benedict his flowers.
Like a little moose, a tiny little moose. He doesn't scream like the others.
No, he doesn't.
There are people who create problems and make messes, and there are those who sit back and watch the mess. Guess which type of person Benedict is.
I'm to spar with Jackson himself.
You?
Is that envy I detect in your voice?
Judgment, brother. I shall need to witness this.
Remember that time Colin entered into a hasty engagement with Marina and everyone was pestering him with their scathing judgments on the matter, but all Benedict did was this?
Good morning. Morning, brother.
Colin, your engagement is in Whistledown.
Hyacinth.
Benedict had no right to be that effortlessly funny and relatable when sitting in the midst of mess. Now, let's get into season 2, which, like I said before, is the season that really got me hooked on Benedict Bridgerton and solidified my decision that he was in fact my favorite. I've mentioned a fair few of his season 2 highlights throughout many of my other Bridgerton videos, which I have already created and published on my channel, but this is his moment in the spotlight, and I will reiterate every bit of praise I have already bestowed. Since season 2 was the season that convinced me that Benedict Bridgerton is the best Bridgerton, I will be going through it episode by episode. Now, this does mean that certain talking points will be repeated as they arise across the season in multiple episodes, but this is necessary as it emphasizes the important, noteworthy character traits that make Benedict who he is. First scene, right off the bat, we are introduced to a defining characteristic, which is that generally speaking, Benedict has a deep understanding of the people around him that he's closest to. I'm going to try not to overuse the phrase emotional intelligence or emotional labor in this video, but it's going to be a challenge and I will definitely fail.
She's requested time.
We do not have time. Stand back.
No offense, sister, but I believe you are the last person she would like to see.
Benedict understands that Eloise feels like a fish out of water with the more traditionally feminine expectations placed on women of the time. She's about to make her debut into society and enter the Shark Tank, in which she will be expected to compete against other women who are on the hunt for a good marriage match. Daphne, however, did extremely well at this. She was crowned the diamond of her season. She was pursued by a prince. She secured a duke with whom she found a love match, something that is extremely rare in this universe. And in general, Daphne was very well regarded. Benedict understands that Daphne's presence will not be helpful in soothing Eloise's anxieties, because by seeing Daphne, Eloise will be forced to directly confront a narrow standard of idealized femininity that she herself does not live up to or fit in with. There isn't a whole lot that Benedict can give to Eloise to make this discomfort go away, but he does know that emotionally speaking, Eloise does not need to see Daphne right now because that will only make her feel worse. If you can't make it better, at the very least, just make sure you don't make it worse.
And what is that supposed to?
Are we sure she's even in there? Of course she is in there.
Where else would she be?
Climb through a window, escape through the chimney.
Quiet.
This is, of course, another defining characteristic of Benedict, and probably the one he's most known for. He's got jokes. Benedict is the funny one. He has a very rare gift of being able to be funny without coming across as malicious or mean-spirited in his humor. The Bridgerton siblings in general like to roast each other, but Benedict in particular is the one that can be the funniest without coming across badly for his jokes. After all, you can't have his humor directly contradict his empathy.
Hastings did it after all. How hard can it be?
Spoke with such feeling, too.
I do not need feeling.
Antony makes it very easy for Benedict to poke fun at him, so he does. Also, Benedict is undoubtedly the romantic of the family, even though he doesn't get to fall in deep romantic love until after multiple siblings of his. He has the greatest affinity for love and the greatest fixation on love out of his entire family of 12,000 siblings. That's why he was so concerned with the idea of women being deprived of a love match if they were to unknowingly end up in a lavender marriage. We also got to see Benedict's signature face. He does that a lot. It's silly and fun, and even though it's a small character detail, I think it's important to notice it because it happens multiple times. That says something about the character, whether it's the choice of an actor or a director or a showrunner. It would not not appear in as many episodes as it does by mere accident or coincidence.
And your ring. When you get the chance, I shall need it. The Fields by Ferry Hallow. I was thinking we might hold off on leasing them this year.
When Anthony asks Violet for the ring, she and Benedict look at each other. This and other things that follow both in this scene and the rest of the season have led me to believe that while Anthony has taken on the role of family patriarch, Benedict has also been pushed into a sort of parent-adjacent role. Specifically, I think he has over time been increasingly expected to help Violet perform emotional labor.
You requested my ring?
Father's betrothal ring.
Did someone catch your eye at the presentation, brother?
Anthony has to be the family patriarch, the financial provider. All of that nonsense because of the traditional gender roles that are enshrined into the culture and legislation of this Regency-inspired setting. Emotional labor is something that is often a thankless job, and I think that is not so coincidentally because emotional labor is often regarded as women's work. Benedict is good at emotional labor because of his personality, and 8 children is a lot for Violet to handle as a single parent. So my headcanon is that whenever it became apparent to Violet that this was something Benedict was good at, he got pulled even more into doing that role, whether he wants to or not at that particular moment in time.
See that he is quite well.
Me?
I'm not in need of coddling.
That is extremely reminiscent of Anthony in season 1, insisting that Benedict dance with Daphne to keep her busy.
Go dance with your sister.
Why?
Because I asked you to.
A lot of discussion has been had about Anthony and Kate being forced into being caretakers, which is understandable because they were the stars of season 2. But let's not forget that Benedict is also pushed into being a caretaker, including being a caretaker for Anthony specifically. And I think he's much more of a challenge to tend to emotionally than all of the other Bridgerton siblings combined.
I'm not in need of coddling.
Yes, you are. Moving on to a ball.
You look lovely, dear. I look like a prize calf trussed up for auction.
Once again, Benedict is using humor to diffuse the tension in a stressful situation. He himself is not stressed out, but Eloise is.
Come, sister. The cakes at these occasions are surprisingly good.
But of course, when it really comes down to it, Benedict knows what the emotional needs are of the people in his life, and in this moment, Eloise needs an out of this situation, and he provides that.
Madame Delacroix, I didn't know you were back in town.
Bien sûr.
This is the scene that sees Benedict and Madame Delacroix reunited for the first and only time of this season. Despite the fling they had in season 1 and the fact that it was cute, we know that she is not his endgame love interest, so it makes sense that the writers don't want to keep him involved with any one person for too long. You can't have him get too serious with anyone because you need all of his prior flings to pale in comparison to his endgame love interest. I don't know if they've been cast yet, but maybe they have. But he asks Madame Delacroix out in this scene, and she politely turns him down, and I really like that he doesn't take rejection badly. If you are a fan of rom-coms or rom-droms, you're probably aware of how normalized toxic behavior is. I'm looking at you, Nicholas Sparks. The bar should not be on the floor, but it kind of is. So it's nice to see that Benedict is staying consistent.
And my art must come before all else.
You can't be the most empathetic sibling in your family and then take romantic rejection badly.
Are you in the modiste still making a stitch?
Anthony, you are not the comedian of this family. Please stop embarrassing yourself.
But apparently not. Have you found a wife yet? Or are you planning to offend every young girl until there are none left?
Benedict is not aggressive, but I do appreciate that if Anthony is poking a sore spot, Benedict knows how to turn the tables. Don't start a fight when you've left mountains of ammunition lying around, Anthony.
Is Mother aware?
Aware of what?
I'm off to deal with our solicitor. Have fun with your pretty pictures, brother.
I know I'm going in sequential order, but for the sake of clarity, I will have to address an arc that spans this season. Anthony secretly buys Benedict a spot at an art school that he wants to attend. This moment here in episode 1 shows how insensitive Antony is about Benedict's passion for art. We as the audience have seen how, from the beginning of the show, Benedict has a passion for art, but he also feels self-conscious about his art. He doesn't see himself as a great artist. So it's actually quite cruel to belittle something that both means so much to Benedict and is something that he has insecurities about. This is a Benedict video, so first and foremost, that's who I'm discussing. But I will note how it's interesting to observe how Antony's emotional maturity and sensitivity evolves over the season, not only in regards to his relationship with Kate and his trauma about the death of his father, but with his relationship to Benedict. We will follow that through the remaining episodes I have yet to get to.
Anyone here you've not yet rejected?
Drag him. Drag him, Benedict.
You're the artist. Do you see anyone remotely inspiring?
Observe the shrug. This is a shrug that says, I haven't found my muse yet because this is your season, brother.
If the Queen in fact names Eloise the diamond, whom will you marry then, brother? Hush you.
It's a valid question, Antony. Benedict is always ready to find the humor and the ridiculousness of any situation, especially the entire Marriage Mart premise of this show.
You look at her the way I look at a finished painting, brother.
Every man needs a muse, does he not?
Let me reiterate this point, and I will continue to do so until it's finally his turn. Benedict's love interest will be his muse. I don't think we're going to start to see the highest highs of his artistic potential until he meets his endgame. Benedict's first scene in episode 2 sees him getting professionally shaved with Antony because not only can rich people not heat milk themselves, they apparently don't know how to shave their own faces either.
We should light it.
Excellent idea.
Well, go on.
For me?
I should not know how to do it.
You believe I should?
Antony is feeling stressed by Kate Sharma's disapproval of his efforts to pursue her sister Edwina, the diamond of the season.
Does Miss Edwina return your affection?
Not yet.
Affection? Oh, Benedict, you sweet little baby capybara. I don't necessarily believe that he thinks Antony's intentions are romantic, but I find it so fitting that Benedict's language is. I don't think he can even help himself. It's simply who he is.
She would have done if it were not for the
sister. She's rather thorny, I take it.
Indeed.
Do you notice how much more delicate Benedict is with his word choice? He's far more polite in his descriptive language towards Kate than even Penelope was.
Must first tame the rather prickly spinster of a beast, otherwise known as her sister.
Penelope, those are fighting words. Are women allowed to duel in this society?
Though she need not trouble me. Every rose does have its thorn, after all.
Observe how Benedict turns to look at Antony with an expression of disbelief. I'd probably do the same if I had an older brother who was embarking on his quest for romance and opted to, quote, poison. Modeling oneself after Bret Michaels is hardly a recipe for success for love, or else there wouldn't have been so many seasons of Rock of Love. This episode also brings about the return of Colin, not very bright Bridgerton.
I believe we must get you to the doctor post-haste.
Wait for it. Here comes the punchline.
This strange fuzzy growth on your chin is no doubt some kind of disease.
This episode also jumpstarts a small subplot that I am really hoping blossoms into a meaningful friendship in future seasons, specifically between Benedict and Will Mondrich.
Mr. Mondrich, it appears retirement suits you well.
Will shares about how he's opening a gentleman's club, and Antony is not supportive.
You do know we have all been members of Whites since birth.
Really? You're all Whites since birth? Huh, I didn't notice.
Grand opening is tomorrow night. You're all, of course, invited to...
Apologies, if you'll excuse me.
Antony might be lacking in manners to someone who is, shall we say, new to money. Seriously, you couldn't have just let him finish his sentence, but at least Benedict is receptive to this.
Tell me, Mr. Mondrich, I wouldn't mind some stimulation.
I need them to be friends. I've said it before, and I will continue to say it. Will in season 1 largely existed to be a friend of Simon, and it wasn't until the end of the season where he made his deal with Penelope's father to throw a fight, and now we get to see him develop more of his own path. And I think that we could learn some really interesting things about both of these characters by having them be friends. Now we get on to the fencing scene where Anthony is sulking about Kate, as he often is in this season.
She's pompous and arrogant and quite sure she knows best in every situation.
But as always, Benedict is the only one who will check him. He will point out the truth of the situation because while Antony might be the family patriarch, Antony is not and has never been Benedict's father. He is his overly dramatic older brother.
Oh, she sounds like a terrible nuisance. Especially since you are the one who knows best in every situation.
Rageaholic.
I'm not a rageaholic.
Do you know why I win every time? Because every time you lose, you claim we cheated.
I'ma just scoot on over and let you whack him. Get him again. Get him for me.
She'll make a perfectly agreeable wife.
What he means to say is that he has already dismissed every other young lady in town.
Oh my God, I'm gonna hang myself by the janimals if you don't stop talking.
Antony demonstrates, yet again, that he's an overzealous sports person, since he's talking about the art of romancing a woman like it's a competition. But of course, good old Benedict, he won't stand for that. Love is not a sport, and a woman is not a prize.
I shall certainly not let some sister, especially one younger than me, keep me from getting what it is I want.
Whom you want, you mean?
Despite Benedict repeatedly calling Antony out in this scene, Antony has a lifetime of steamrolling Benedict.
As I now honor him.
A few moments later.
Yeah! Yeah!
What honor?
Which is why he doesn't take any of Benedict's astute observations to heart. He doesn't apply any of the feedback Benedict is giving in a way that can make him improve his character for the better. Because sadly, I don't think Antony really respects Benedict the way that he deserves at this point in the series. We'll get there, make no mistake, but there's something really sad about how much Benedict gets overlooked time and time again, and by members of his own family. But moving on ahead to Benedict visiting Will's club.
Mr. Bridgerton, you honor me with your presence.
The significance of this cannot be understated. Benedict comes from a high-standing, reputable family, and this social currency, even if he is only the second son, is beneficial to helping Will's club get off the ground.
The honour's all mine, Mr. Mondrish. The place looks extraordinary. Though, am I a little early?
The Ton is a culture of tradition. It's very old-fashioned. And Benedict is someone who exists in direct opposition to that. He is open to new things, new ideas, and is someone that is better suited to adapt and change and progress for the better.
I heard a rumor that you yourself are an artist.
Oh, I dabble.
This is an important part of hopefully developing the friendship between these two. Will clearly wants to make a good impression with Benedict since he can help to get more people to come to this gentleman's club. But Will's approach is particularly noteworthy. He could have very easily tried to butter up Benedict by offering him access to booze and women, but instead, he went for Benedict's heart. Benedict's art is his passion, even though we are clearly seeing some insecurities about being an artist and about even identifying himself as such. And Will doesn't get enough credit for being the entire reason that Benedict has this story this season of getting to go to art school. Will introduces him to Mr. Crookshank, who ends up being the one to tell him about the art academy that Benedict applies to.
Every honest man, regardless of his title, rank, or occupation, is welcome to be here.
Will seems like the perfect person to be in Benedict's corner whenever he finally has his own love story. I haven't read Benedict's book.
We're a book club. I know that. How stupid do you think I am?
But I'm assuming there will be naysayers who object to Benedict getting involved with someone who isn't from his class. Will is someone who is far more likely to support Benedict following his heart than the vast majority of these nasty Ton people.
I must say, Mr. Mondrich, I'm quite overjoyed to see what a fine establishment you've built by the sweat of your own honest labour.
It's important to remember that Benedict, despite coming from wealth and privilege, is someone with integrity. He wants to prove himself as an artist on his own merits, which is why he reacts so poorly later in this season when he finds out Antony bought him his spot at the art academy. I think we can also observe a focus on Will's expression that suggests he feels some guilt or that he is conflicted about having to do something deceptive to secure financial security for his family. I am really hoping that at some point, I don't know if it will be in season 3 or season 4, that we will see Will open up about what he did to Benedict and that Benedict will accept him. Because Will did not do anything wrong. He lives in a cruel world, and if the option was to throw a fight or have him and his wife end up on the streets once he is no longer physically capable of holding his own in a professional fight, then he chose correctly. We see that Benedict gets introduced to Mr. Crookshank and they speak about art.
I saw that Gerard painting. It was a marvel.
Now, for those of you who are unaware, Benedict is referring to François Gérard, a French painter. Luke Thompson speaks French. If we don't get Benedict speaking some French in his season, we are going to have problems. Benedict speaking French can give his wooing a little something extra.
You and I, we know the secret of life.
Well, what is that?
Butter.
So Benedict is in the middle of learning about this art academy when he is rudely interrupted by who else but Antony.
I hear it is the place to be.
Brother, I need you.
I'm in the midst of a conversation.
Outside, straight away.
Now, of course, this is the scene that was a true game changer. It made Antony see Benedict in a whole new light, and I would argue that it also made the audience see him like never before. Antony wants Benedict's help to learn how to recite poetry.
There is a pleasure in the pathless woods.
Can we talk about how Benedict is hilarious with a single syllable? Imagine being that skilled of a comedic actor. Just imagine it. But this is where we learn that Antony sees poetry as deceitful, and Benedict has to check him.
Poetry's the opposite, brother. It's the art of revealing precious truth with words.
It's refreshing to see this dynamic presented and explored where Benedict can show the wisdom he has that Antony lacks. Antony demonstrates a more practical intelligence that is necessary for fulfilling his duties as Viscount, but the emotional intelligence, very lacking. Benedict did not get nearly enough credit for helping Antony to learn and develop this season. Now, don't get me wrong, Kate, of course, deserves plenty of credit, but Benedict is the one who is contextualizing that what Antony is attempting to do here is deceitful. Benedict speaks beautifully, and he speaks from the heart about what it is to love a woman. And Antony wants to steal these words and use them to win over Edwina. Benedict goes along with it because Antony will steamroll him if he doesn't. But Antony, looking at Kate later at the party when he's attempting to read Benedict's words and present them as his own, you cannot tell me that Benedict's words aren't knocking around in his subconscious and making him ponder, do you really want to be deceitful in front of Kate Sharma?
To delight in her beauty, so much so that all your defenses crumble.
Benedict's poem is too long for me to play without the copyright bots descending upon my video, but all I will say is, if this is how Benedict speaks off the cuff when explaining poetry to his insufferable older brother, can you imagine how intense he's going to be when he gets his own season? I'm so excited I can hardly stand it.
That is what the true poet describes.
You should apply yourself more often, Benedict.
Benedict sharing a little piece of himself and the honest beauty of who he is, the depths and layers of himself, that was what forced Antony to see that he needed to be more supportive of Benedict and his artistic aspirations. Admittedly, It's incredibly frustrating to watch this exchange and then see Antony repeatedly picking on Benedict for most of this season after this and mocking his art. But there's an expression, Rome wasn't built in a day, and Antony does come around eventually. And when I say eventually, I mean he'll finally start to get it at the very end of the season, but that's neither here nor there.
Write that down.
Really, Antony? He just told you that poetry was the opposite of deceitful. Please try to have an attention span longer than that of a goldfish. Episode 3 brings about a fan favorite occasion, Pall Mall. That means the return of Daphne.
As if I would allow dear Augie to miss out on watching his mother win this little family tradition. Second year in a row, if I might add.
Charming words from a duchess.
Let me just point out that Benedict is not sexist. This is merely more of that signature Bridgerton sibling banter. Benedict is poking fun at the status quo that would deny Daphne the opportunity to talk trash, which I would assume is a recurring part of sports culture, but I wouldn't know a thing about that. Not a sports person. It would be far less fun if Daphne was behaving herself according to these horrible social rules of the ton.
And now you appeal for help. My, you must be smitten by this miss.
For the sisters, a formidable obstacle indeed.
Drag him, Benedict. Drag him. Daphne explains the rules of Pall Mall to Kate and Edwina, and while doing so, she also gives them an insight into the strategies of each player, except for herself, of course.
I, of course, am a complete enigma who will divulge none of my secrets.
But I don't know if Daphne gets enough credit, or I suppose it would be the writers who deserve the credit for putting these extremely astute character descriptions by way of Pall Mall strategy.
Colin is crafty. He will strike when he thinks you're least suspecting it, so always be suspecting it.
Is that not an exact description of what he did at the end of this season with him pretending to get involved with Lord Featherington only to expose those jewels as being fake?
Eloise concentrates entirely on defeating her older brothers. The hope is that she gets so absorbed by them that she forgets about you.
Eloise is always harping on the sexism that affects her directly as a white woman from a wealthy family, so that tracks. But of course, this is a Benedict video.
Now, Benedict is a solid shot. He avoids conflict.
He avoids conflict. How often do we see Antony steamrolling him? I know that I've pointed out, and will continue to point out in this video, that Benedict will check Antony or crack jokes in general about Antony, but he often has a delicate quality to his delivery. There is a levity and mirth to his tone. He hardly ever goes as hard as he could, or perhaps should, when Antony is acting like a clown. So tell me, if Benedict avoids conflict, does this mean that he's going to have to get into conflict to defend his love interest from vicious classism? An intriguing idea, and I would like to see it. But now we move on to the game of Pall Mall. It's meant to be a fun occasion, and in many ways it is, but poor Benedict is practically sick with worry over his application to art school. He confides in Colin, which sort of makes sense since he's definitely not going to open up to Antony about it, since Antony has never expressed much in the way of support directly to Benedict about his art. But I also think it would have made more sense for him to talk to Eloise about it. They are the ones that have been closer to each other than they've been with the rest of their siblings. But it has to be Colin simply for the sake of setting up the tea. Before we leave the Pall Mall game, though, I just want to point out that when Colin goads Kate and Antony into potentially quitting the game after their balls are knocked into the forest, and Kate responds, "Absolutely not," Benedict smiles at her response. That is a precursor to Benedict being impressed that Kate is an excellent shot. We as an audience were robbed of seeing these two interacting. This is what happens when you have this many characters and not enough budget or airtime to let more of them mingle with one another. We never got to see Kate speaking her mind directly to Benedict and being very strong-willed, and Benedict responding to it with happiness, encouragement, amusement, and dare I say, downright glee. We never really got to see them speak with each other all that much, and I hope that this changes in season 3, but I don't want to get my hopes up. We'll probably just get another hour of Portia being a villain. Are any of you tired? Because I'm exhausted.
You're seriously just making it worse. I don't want to go home.
Can't. When Colin is explaining the tea to Benedict, Colin inadvertently seems to let on that he's got some stuff of his own that he needs to deal with.
The doubts, the questions that seem to linger, no matter how far you go to escape them.
And how does Benedict react to this?
Are you quite well, brother?
Oh, Benedict, ever the caretaker. But who thinks of Benedict's well-being? Who cares for the caretaker? He's so busy trying to make sure everyone else is okay. No wonder he's so stressed about his art. How can he even concentrate on creating when at any given moment, someone in his family is probably wrapped up in mess? But anyway, he drinks the tea, and this facilitates one of the best gifts the show has ever provided.
This room is exceptionally well lit. Have you noticed, Cole? The twinkle of the candles.
Intoxicated Benedict Bridgerton. Is this dinner a disaster, or is it the hot mess we have always wanted to be invited to?
To see it in decades.
Benedict is over here moaning about food, spilling wine, and giggling.
Oh! Benedict, dear, you alarm our guests.
It's quite all right.
He also grabs the arm of the butler who comes to pour him more wine. This man is out here serving entertainment like the rent is due. And it always is, because too many people have not risen up to overthrow landlords and expropriate their hoarded resources. Benedict finger paints while high and creates beautiful art. He could have gotten in on his own merits. Don't tell me that he can't. I don't care if you're an art history major and you disagree. I would put that on a wall in my dream house, and so would you. Now, this is a scene where Benedict's loose lips reiterate his self-doubt, but he temporarily seems to have a breakthrough about getting validation from the broader hierarchy of this institution.
You're right. Oh, I've allowed my doubts to play me for too long. The
Royal Academy School's not the arbiters of taste. The world is.
Benedict quickly changes his mind and gets excited when he receives his acceptance letter.
The Royal Schools have accepted me as a student. I got in!
He gets incredibly emotional about it.
I'm honored to accept your acceptance.
But this is all part of his journey. If he truly wants to find success and fulfillment as an artist, he needs to find confidence in his own vision. That is the same confidence he will need in order to stand up for his working class love interest in the midst of the vicious classism of the time. Episode 4 is one of my favorite Benedict episodes. But who am I kidding? Every episode is a great Benedict episode as long as he's in it. We start things off with him directly addressing the Ton culture, in which marriage is an economic transaction first and only rarely a romantic one.
Who's made the whole affair so fraught with difficulty?
The whole marriage mark business seems entirely too difficult to me.
We have already established that Benedict holds true romance and love in high regard. It's practically sacred to him, so the marriage mart would be antithetical to Benedict's values. But a direct declaration of this opposition perfectly sets him up to find love outside of that commotion, so he will be able to find a romantic connection as opposed to a transactional one.
But if one must participate in it, why not do it in the fresh air?
You've got to love a man who gesticulates. But of course, the most delightful and underrated part of this episode is how much Benedict likes Kate. Not romantically, this is not that type of romance.
2 brothers, 1 woman, who will emerge victorious?
No, not at all. When Edwina points out that Kate is an excellent shot, Benedict appears visibly impressed.
Kate, tell him I used to shoot all the time.
Miss Edwina.
Benedict doesn't care about gender normative rules about what is or is not appropriate or acceptable for women. If anything, it's all the more impressive that she can handle a weapon when she has so many institutions telling her not to go near one. Most viewers are probably aware of Benedict making faces reacting to Antony digging himself deeper and deeper into a hole of being an ignorant bro. He's wincing, he's laughing to himself, but he also hides his reactions from Antony because, just like Daphne said when explaining the rules and strategies of Pall Mall, Benedict avoids conflict.
Now, Benedict is a solid shot. He avoids conflict.
Benedict agrees that Kate should join the hunting trip. And sure, part of that may be that he wants to mess with Antony, but...
Surely we can make an exception, just this one time. We're on our private lands, after all, and...
Him making reference to the Bridgertons owning large amounts of private land, this detail is a reminder of how, no matter how much we love the Bridgerton universe, this is in fact a family of elites who need to get at least one of their houses stormed and expropriated. Why do you need multiple mansions? Goodbye. But political tangent aside, this reminder of the enormous economic privilege of the Bridgerton family is a world-building detail. If Benedict ends up with someone from the working class, if people want to be annoying about it, they have a whole lot of land that they can always retreat to, where they can just hang out and vibe. You have loads of space to enjoy your lives with each other if and when you want to insulate yourselves from rude, judgmental people who might want to speak ill of you and your spouse or give you dirty looks when you're out and about. I don't know what their story is. I haven't read the book, but I will after season 4, because Benedict had better be season 4. So help me, if they make a different Bridgerton sibling the star of season 4.
Oh my God. I feel sick.
When the hunting trip starts and the men are chatting about the weather, Kate roasts them, and you can see Benedict making a face when she does this, and that face tells me
The men out enjoying the sunshine, a sign of a great hunt.
this is a man who doesn't mind being roasted by a woman with a strong character. I like that. It's the same thing when she says she wants to do her own thing instead of following the guide, just because that's what they're supposed to do. He gets a big grin on his face.
What I would prefer is to be allowed to follow my own instincts on this hunt, instead of blindly following the guide.
He also gets relegated to the role of babysitter for Kate's chaperone when Antony wants to go running off and chase after Kate.
Keep her with you?
Do you see how Benedict is always being pushed into the role of the babysitter, the nurturer, the caretaker? There is some truth to the notion of his personality and character traits aligning with those tendencies, but it's specifically the steamrolling that starts to wear on me as a Benedict fan. Benedict is more than capable of jumping to look after people and supporting them emotionally without you people in his life bossing him around incessantly.
There the two of you are. Well, you better rejoin us before the rain ends our pursuit.
Another thing I love about him is that he knows how to mind his own business. Even if he knows or has an inkling that you're up to something, he's not going to air you out. These two were together, unchaperoned, and he's not putting it out to the world. He's not trying to force them into a marriage. It's a bit of a recurring issue in the original books, apparently, from what I've heard, I don't know, of people being forced into marriages for violating those gross, puritanical social rules about interacting with one another. I know that when I posted my video about who can see Kate and Antony's feelings before they became publicly known, I didn't include Benedict in this, and I stand by that. Regardless of what gets said in episode 7, we will get there, just wait. This detail of him noticing that they were alone together, possibly having a moment, he can stow this information away in his mind, and it will help him to put the pieces together in hindsight. We will talk more about that, though, once we get to episode 6 and 7. Episode 5 sees Benedict finally going to art school. He has been accepted to the Royal Academy, and he is full of youthful vigor, enthusiasm. It's incredibly endearing, and he spots Tessa, who will be his fling for the season.
Soon you shall be just as jaded as the rest of us.
In hindsight, That line feels like tragic foreshadowing given how despondent he seems at the end of the season once he finds out the truth about Antony buying his entry into the academy and going right back to where he started of feeling not good enough as an artist, even though we see tangible proof that he has developed more skills as a direct result of his enrollment.
The Queen might be hosting everything at the palace, but we must still be ready to entertain here.
What of us, brother? Should we also be polished and braided for the big day?
More jokes from our resident comedy sibling.
Oh, I do hope so. It will be a boon to have another intelligent woman in the house.
Another? You're overcounting.
And here we are well aware of the fact that yet again he is joking. We already know that in season 1 he speculated that Eloise could be Lady Whistledown.
Eloise? Are you Lady Whistledown?
He believed that she had the intelligence, the cunning, and every other trait and skill required to be Lady Whistledown and keep that identity a secret. I don't think the writers and Luke Thompson as a performer get enough credit for keeping Benedict in this perfectly balanced sweet spot where he can make any number of jokes poking fun at the people in his life, but he never once comes across as sexist or malicious or mean-spirited. It's always meant in good fun. There can be a bit more aggression between him and Antony, but that's entirely Antony's fault. I said what I said.
I hate to break it to you, but I'm gonna.
That man has been a menace ever since he got into the swing of things as the Viscount Bridgerton, the family patriarch.
I am attending a lecture this afternoon. Flower arranging.
What the fuck is going on in here on this day?
For how long have you cared about flower arranging?
I'm an open-minded woman. I can care about many things.
First of all, I love that Benedict is not a rat. He knows that Eloise is lying, but he lets her carry on and do whatever it is that she's going to get up to.
Don't look at me. I don't know a thing.
Just because Violet, and I suppose Antony as well, try to make him an unofficial parental figure whenever it's convenient for them, it doesn't mean that he is a parent. He is the cool, fun older brother. We don't always get to see the full details of the many relationship dynamics across the 11,000 children in the Bridgerton family, but my headcanon is that Benedict is the majority favorite amongst his siblings. And also, this head tilt? Luke Thompson's physicality, the excellence he is serving with the details of the choices he makes for this character are supremely underrated. And that's partially why I don't watch a lot of his interviews, because I inevitably just get aggravated by the interviewers not asking him any of the things that I want to know about his approach to playing the character. Netflix publicists, if you're watching this, please put me on the press tour for season 3. I can ask more than once in this video. Why not? People's attention spans are shorter nowadays because of smartphones.
It bears repeating.
Now that we return to Benedict at art school, there is an underrated detail I need to point out. Exposed forearms. Now hear me out. The Bridgerton universe, despite being an alternate universe, does heavily model itself after the Regency setting, which is very buttoned up, culturally speaking. There are multiple instances we have seen men have exposed forearms on the show. And anytime we do, it's a signal that something slightly dramatic but fun to watch is about to happen. We have Simon in season 1 further instigating Daphne's sexual awakening. There's Antony in the library scene with Kate. And now we have Benedict getting the forearms out to meet Tessa, with whom he has a cute little fling in season 2. Colin stans, watch out in season 3, because if there are any scenes where he gets his forearms out while his shirt is still on, I would not be surprised if it's a signal that something is about to go down. Now, perhaps those who have read Benedict's book and are already invested in whatever happens in it don't want to watch him date around with other characters. I, however, have not read it yet, and I'm always happy to see Benedict enjoying the company of people who show him affection instead of forcing him to perform emotional labor without so much as a thank you for it.
No, by all means, speak your mind. You got a problem with my boy?
So Benedict meets Tessa. He compliments her art.
I declare, that's rather good.
And she shares that she is only posing as a nude model in some of these courses as a way of getting in to hear these lectures and apply those lessons to her own art because the Academy does not allow women to enroll.
I'm skilled at more than simply standing naked. Mr.
Bridgerton, I do not doubt it.
I adore how earnest he is. He admires her clever way of gaming a corrupt, discriminatory system and shows her art the respect that it's due.
So you work as a model as a way of learning from the lectures. Ingenious.
I sincerely hope that these interactions are an indication that Benedict is going to be accepting instead of judgmental towards Will if and when he learns about how Will got the money to jumpstart his gentleman's club. It would be a nice detail of character growth since he was a bit more judgmental when learning about lavender marriages in season 1. I really want that friendship explored between Benedict and Will in season 2. I've said it before and clearly I'm going to keep saying it. Then we get Benedict posing for Tessa and being ridiculously cute while doing so.
Like so?
And she's moving him around, getting him into position. Clearly, this is a man who's fine with a woman taking charge. We love that.
This movie is good.
You gotta put your fingers in the holes.
And then she wants him to remove clothing.
What I really need is a study of the male form, the naked form. What say you?
What did we learn about Benedict from this? That he is perfectly fine with being objectified, equality.
Please mansplain sexism to me.
Oh my God, I am a woman. I can't mansplain anything.
I'm a feminist, and I think a woman can do anything a man can do.
No, but beyond any thirst jokes, pay close attention to how he pauses before dropping his trousers, and you can see Tessa give him a nod. Is that a man understanding and valuing consent? No aggressive caveman to be found here. Finally, we see them being intimate at the end of the episode.
Intimate? Is that how old people say sex?
Admittedly, this relationship gets very little airtime beyond this one episode, since apparently we needed 12 hours of an insufferable subplot about fake jewels and flop mines. Anyway. Episode 6 opens with Benedict being at Antony's stag night and cracking jokes at his expense.
The Viscount believes in hurrying things along these days. First the wedding, now it's drink. I just hope for Edwina's sake the tendency stops before the honeymoon.
Ooh, Antony, what if you're bad in bed, bro?
Have you always been so vulgar? Or staring at naked models all day turned your brain to charcoal?
Now, Antony, where was this energy for those misogynistic weirdos you were talking to at the ball?
Simply pick the least objectionable and get her wed, bed and Brit. Then you can return to more pleasurable pursuits.
And more pleasurable partners.
Maybe if you had put them in their place, you wouldn't have dug yourself 12 feet under with the awful impression you made on Kate. And yes, I said 12 feet, not 6 feet, because that's how bad it was.
That's gross.
But anyway, carry on, Benedict. Keep roasting Antony. Someone has to.
Tell me, dear brother, once you marry, will your duty finally be fulfilled so you can stop reminding everyone of it?
Drag her. Drag her. Drag her. Drag her.
Not much will change at all, though soon enough we will have a tiny Antony to contend with, running around, declaring all of his tiny duties too, no doubt.
Benedict is going to be a ridiculously cute uncle. We didn't get to see much of it with Daphne's baby, but if Kate has any babies on the show, I want to see Uncle Benedict in action. Moving on to the doomed wedding of Antony and Edwina, Benedict is visibly drinking. I don't entirely know what to make of Benedict's drinking. It's pretty excessive in this episode, and I can't help but wonder if that's a way of foreshadowing something less pleasant for him in season 3 after the betrayal of finding out Antony bought him his spot at the art academy. I can't help but wonder if he's going to perhaps use alcohol a bit more than he should as a coping mechanism of sorts. At the very least, it might be an excuse for him to go hang out with Will at the club. Nothing like some quality bro time while you're moping.
Whatever you have done to your brother, undo it.
Well, I guess I better try them all tonight then.
Tooth. All.
Toot, baby. Toot sweet.
I may never reach your capacity for drink, brother.
It's a simple remedy. If you continue to drink, there can be no after effects.
Benedict, I feel like you know just a bit too much about drinking.
If only you would use your powers for good.
Is that foreshadowing? Is he going to help a working class love interest get out of a bad situation? I don't know. I haven't read the book. Don't tell me. They'll probably revise the details anyway, since they can't even be bothered to go in order for the show, and I'm stuck waiting for Benedict's season. And yes, I oscillate between irritation and acceptance when it comes to that particular revision. Let me oscillate in peace.
I'm not a rageaholic.
Has anyone seen Anthony? Benedict, see that he is well. I'm sure the emotions of the day have somewhat confused him.
And once again, Violet is pushing Benedict to perform emotional labor. Is she actually aware that sometimes people should try to check on how Benedict is feeling? Poor Benedict is helping Anthony get ready for his wedding, and he's still drinking. Why? I feel like even before the revelation about Anthony's donation, Benedict has more inner turmoil going on than we're really getting to see. When will someone think of Benedict's emotions? Surely I can't be the only one who cares.
Well, in truth, I was delayed by doubts about whether the festivities of this day might or might not take place.
Does the Duchess not care for your bride, brother?
What's that I spy? Is that my favorite Bridgerton, Benedict? Being messy and living for the drama. It's all in good fun, of course. But I like the vibe he gives off where he enjoys low-stakes drama. If he really thought it was as serious as it is, I don't think he would be getting excited about it. He's very relatable to me in that way.
I find Miss Edwina to be quite lovely and deserving of the truth, which we must not deny her.
I'm confused. Who's denying what to whom?
And here is where I get to repeatedly point out that Benedict did not know that Kate and Anthony were having capital F feelings for one another the way that Daphne, Violet, and Lady Danbury knew. Ever since I posted my video essay about the not-so-hidden feelings of Kate and Anthony, I have had multiple comments coming in saying, Benedict knew too, he said so in episode 7. I rebuke this sentiment. And now I get to present the evidence.
Benedict, you must excuse us. It seems the Duchess has opinions.
But I wish
the
to
best
know.
man listens to the groom. Go.
But I wish to know. A statement that necessitates a lack of knowledge of what Anthony and Daphne are speaking cryptically to each other about. I love how even though he's clearly disappointed that he has to go, he grabs an extra treat on the way out that's cute, as is him winking at Anthony when he reaches the altar. Anthony and Kate look at each other while at the altar, and Benedict doesn't notice. This is a prime example of an exchange between them that attracts attention. It's like when Anthony looked at Kate at the talent show party and Violet noticed, or when Anthony looked at Kate over dinner and Daphne noticed. We've got a mutual look between them in a very public setting. And Benedict doesn't notice because he has not yet experienced that great epic endgame love yet. Ergo, I stand by my thesis. Now, on to something more humorous.
To satisfy men's carnal lusts and appetites, like brute beasts that have...
Benedict is making faces in the background. Your Honor, I love him. But also, I would be doing the same thing if I had to listen to a boring speech.
Look, I'm not used to paying attention to super boring, long stuff, okay?
We all know this wedding is a disaster. And how does Benedict respond?
Miss Edwina is merely agitated. She will come to her senses.
Does that sound like someone who knew the tea?
Miss Edwina does seem to have a delicate constitution. Perhaps some fresh air will be just the thing. Flask.
Here we see a man proposing taking a hit off of a flask as if that's somehow going to help the situation. Really? Didst thou, viewers, think before commenting thine belief that Benedict knew that Anthony was ready to get on his hands and knees for Kate Sharma from the second he met her?
I hate to break it to you, but I'm gonna.
Absolutely not.
Perhaps we should allow Anthony a little respite. Brother, is that what you need?
Good old Benedict. Ready to offer emotional labor, even when he's tipsy. Episode 7 opens with Colin roasting Anthony, and Benedict sipping tea and laughing into it.
Where is your brother? He should be here by now.
Perhaps he's still waiting at the altar for Miss Edwina.
This is when the Bridgerton family is feeling stressed by the social backlash from the Ton for having a very dramatic non-wedding. I don't know why the Ton is full of haters. You should say thank you for the entertainment. You could have been stuck listening to a long, boring sermon that would have had you deep in the trenches of brain fog, and instead they gave you a show.
Oh my God, this is crazy.
But few are feeling more stressed about this debacle than Anthony, and all jokes aside, Benedict is still, as always, ready to perform emotional labor.
United as the most respectable family that we still very much are.
Respectable. A respectable family is headed by a gentleman.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Brother, is there something more we should know, or perhaps more than just I should know?
Benedict is offering to be his confidant so that Anthony may unburden himself of whatever it is that is clearly eating away at him. The family has that stressful little outing. It is seriously agony to rewatch this scene, but as for Benedict, he does not appear to be as stressed by the noticeable public disapproval as the rest of his family. With what little we see of him, he appears to mostly be looking at Anthony to see how he is doing. But Anthony, he still needs to be annoying when it comes to Benedict. I cannot emphasize enough that this man made a large donation to the Art Academy to get Benedict in, and yet he continues to be so rude and judgmental towards Benedict about art school.
I was painting that.
It will all be on display. Perhaps you might even scrub your hands for the occasion.
I've been occupied at the academy.
What's about You're not going to have lectures and exams nonstop, Anthony. Sometimes you need to indulge in a drop of human connection to find further inspiration for the art you will be creating in the first place.
The royal schools do seem to be providing a different sort of education than what I pictured. Or perhaps exactly as I pictured.
Is this what I paid for with all of my generational wealth that I oversee and complain endlessly about? Now, this is a small detail, but it's my channel, my video, and I will air any grievance I choose.
Can I get you a drink?
Is there somewhere we can go that is a little quieter?
The audio mixing on this exchange is weird. They have Anthony telling Benedict that it's too loud to have the personal conversation they're about to have, and yet the background ambiance of the ongoing festivities, not loud at all. When filming a scene like this, you are not actually going to have all of this background noise going on. The same can be said for music that is playing in scenes taking place in nightclubs or school dances. That's why when you watch the bloopers in the credits of 10 Things I Hate About You, you do not hear any music playing.
I'll see you around, okay?
All right, that's enough, okay? You crossed the line.
I have zero doubt that when they were filming this scene between Anthony and Benedict, that it was quiet on the set. So what happened? Did the Netflix overlords rush you into a premature release date so your audio mixers could not work to achieve proper quality?
Do you do this every night?
Oh, did you come to admonish me?
I only mean to...
Do you see that? The signature face is back. For those of you who like to indulge in alcoholic beverages, if you're ever looking for a drinking game, binge Bridgerton and drink whenever Benedict makes his signature face. Now is when we finally sequentially reach Benedict calling Anthony on his feelings for Kate.
Does this have to do with whatever's truly going on with you and the Sharmas? Particularly the eldest? Mother's not the only one who sees the way you look at her.
I have already addressed this at length, but I will reiterate because we have reached it sequentially. Benedict did not know the depths of what was going on in between Anthony and Kate as it was happening in real time. He figured more of it out in hindsight. All of the clues of Kate and Anthony bickering with each other, of walking up on Kate and Anthony being very close to each other when hunting. It didn't make sense until after the wedding blew up and he had time to sober up and ponder and reflect. But more than that, the takeaway of what Benedict says here is at the end of the lines.
How long do you plan on punishing yourself for and wallowing in such misery?
It's the part where he's trying to get Anthony to stop beating himself up. Anthony is a human being who made mistakes. He never set out to make a mess for himself or his family. Quite the contrary. And Benedict knows that.
It is only out of the greatest love of my family that I aim to choose a bride with my head and not my heart.
Benedict's capacity for empathy is enormous. His EQ is very high. And Anthony needed someone to break him out of this toxic, self-hating headspace. I know that Kate and Anthony are very similar to each other. Amongst other things, they beat themselves up when they don't need to. So by falling in love with each other, they are also learning to love themselves. And I am not downplaying that aspect of their relationship in any way. However, Benedict also deserves some credit for helping Anthony to grow as a person and be less emotionally stunted. And the proof of that comes in what he says next.
Look, no, things may seem bleak now, brother. But if I'm learning anything from my art studies, it's that it is almost always a matter of perspective. I look at my art, and if I do not like what I see, I may always alter the colour palette, but I certainly do not toss the entire design aside. Perhaps you two could do the same in your own life.
Anthony, of course, reacts to Benedict as he often does.
Back to taking the tea, are we?
The manners of Anthony Bridgerton are, as always, lacking. We know this. The entire season would not have had this level of drama if he had manners enough to not speak like a garbage can at that party. Benedict tells Anthony to change his perspective. He is advising him to be less negative. There's nothing wrong with some criticism, skepticism, and so on and so forth, but Anthony does not know how to do negativity in moderation. That is the cycle, the train of thought that Benedict is trying to help him to break. Put a pin in that dialogue because we will be returning to it very shortly. Violet and Lady Danbury try to throw a joint ball between the Bridgertons and Sharmas to win back the good opinion of the Ton. It doesn't go well. People don't show up.
I am doing this for all of us.
Perhaps there's still time to change your theme.
First of all, the theme of the ball was harmony. And second of all, now is not the time for jokes, Benedict.
Yo, it's not funny. It's really not funny.
No one shows up, and Benedict is ready to leave. He wants to have a good time. Why be around everyone else's misery when he could be making beautiful art instead?
If there's no need for my presence, I shall head to my studio. I, for one, do not wish to be around such misery all evening.
But wait, Anthony doesn't want him to leave.
Wait, I know of your opinions, brother.
Do you know how sad it is to watch Benedict be so beaten down by Anthony's negativity about his art and see little to no one else speaking on it?
You will stay for a dance. There shall be dancing. A new perspective, yes?
That pin we put in it, now is when we remove it. This adorable little number of two families having fun together without any of the toxicity of the Ton at large being present to ruin it. None of this would have happened were it not for Benedict Bridgerton being the loving, supporting brother that he is and helping Anthony to work on his emotions, to be less negative. And did Benedict get a thank you for it from the broader audience? I don't think so. Just look at how visibly confused Benedict is that Anthony is taking his advice. Will someone please think of Benedict's emotional well-being? Oh, what's that? We need 3 more hours of the Featheringtons being a menace to society instead?
Should I block it? Yeah. I'ma block it.
Episode 8 opens with Anthony bringing Kate in from the rain, and she's unconscious because of her head injury.
What happened? My valet saw you carrying Miss Sharma inside. Is she all right?
While Antony is stressing about potentially losing Kate, of the Sharmas having to experience the same loss that he did, what does Benedict say?
You alright?
Because Benedict is the caretaker. Because Benedict is out here looking out for everyone. But who is looking out for him? Who? I ask all of you. Not the writers of Netflix's Bridgerton. Certainly not them.
We're not attending this Featherington ball, are we?
Oh, I do not know.
My boy is out here being a Featherington family anti, and I love that for him. I love that for me. If you like Penelope, I'm not shading you. I'm fine with seeing her. What I don't want to see is her family. I'm tired. And Netflix is not funding enough episodes per season for me to want them getting all that airtime when I still don't know what Kate Sharma's birth parents look like.
No one gives any thought as to how it must be managed.
Yes, 1 in 20, brother.
And your point is, Benedict?
She's a child!
Antony lashes out at all of his siblings, prompting them to leave because they're mad as hell and they're not going to take this anymore.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
You, keep your doodling.
Yes. Doodling awaits, I suppose.
If you feel like it's getting repetitive for me to show you each and every time Antony bullies Benedict about his art, imagine how tired Benedict's fans are. I don't show you these clips to be repetitive. I show it to you in order to present how excessive it is and how much negativity gets drilled into Benedict's head. The same negative cycle that he helped Antony to get out of, Antony has spent all of these episodes hammering that negativity into Benedict's skull. Episode 8 is a largely celebratory one because we finally see Kate and Antony express their love for one another after an entire season of emotional edging. But it is a devastating episode for Benedict Bridgerton and all of his fans. Here we see him at art school painting Tessa, having a wonderful time, getting validation for the improvement he has made in his art, from all of the work he has put into developing his skills. And then an ugly truth reveals itself. Benedict learns that he was accepted to the Academy because of Antony.
Your brother's large donation to the Academy. It's what secured your place.
Benedict is visibly heartbroken when he finds out about this. You can just see his confidence shatter. All of the joy we just saw of him having an artistic breakthrough, of thinking he was surrounded by friends, only to have it ripped away from him. We don't see a breakup scene between him and Tessa, but I think it's safe to say they're finished now. I don't fault Tessa for not talking to him about the donation. Yes, it seems clear that she knew about it since she tried to stop Rupert from revealing it, but I would assume that was more so to spare Benedict's feelings, and we didn't see enough of their interactions to presume that what they had was all that serious in the first place, to where she would even think to start prodding into his personal business. Still, I'm sympathetic to Benedict. It's embarrassing to have this be revealed at all, let alone like this, with no warning to try to soften the blow. Then we get to Benedict joining Eloise outside on the swings, and it is wild to me, after all that was done in season 1 to emphasize the closeness of their relationship, that it took 8 episodes to get a proper one-on-one between them in season 2. But we needed to know about those freaking Featherington mines instead. Okay.
What would you know about heartbreak?
I would not, really.
Yes, you would, Benedict. Just because Benedict hasn't had his season yet or experienced that deep romantic love that Daphne and Antony have does not mean that he hasn't experienced heartbreak. There are many different ways that a heart can break. And I think Benedict's heart is on his sleeve. He also has a strong sense of the emotions of the human condition. That's why he's so good at emotional labor. And that's what he gets from art.
But I have felt it in paintings, in a Gainsborough portrait or Turner sky.
It would have been so nice to see more of Eloise and Benedict helping each other out through their various struggles this season. I, for one, would have loved to hear what Benedict would say about Eloise's blossoming friendship or romance with Theo. I'd like to think that he would have been supportive and told her that if Theo makes her happy, she should go for it. Date him. She doesn't like going to these balls of the Ton anyway. Go make some trouble together. Rattle the bourgeoisie so much that your faces are what they see in their nightmares. But at least we have this scene.
And what does one feel in a Bridgerton?
Disappointment. Lack of inspiration.
That's because you haven't met your muse yet, Benedict. I think I saw someone in my comments saying that they are theorizing that his endgame love interest has already appeared on the show. I'm not going to believe that theory until I can get to a point of there being concrete proof of it, but I stand by what I've already said, which is that Benedict's endgame will be his muse, and the show has been very unsubtle in hinting at that.
You look at her the way I look at a finished painting, brother.
Every man needs a muse, does he not?
Antony might not care about checking up on Benedict, but Eloise will.
I'm an imposter, Al. Turns out Antony himself bought my seat at that table.
Benedict really wants to prove himself on his own merits, which I appreciate. I am no stranger to harping on the fact that these characters are all rich elites, living a life of luxury off the labor of the working class at large. And Benedict was about to be a textbook Nepo baby by thriving in an artistic career bought and served up on a silver platter by his filthy rich, affluent brother, an aristocrat with a shiny title and all the generational wealth that comes with it. Benedict is free to pursue and practice his art in a way that his working class counterparts are not, because they're too busy working just to survive, while he can just lounge around sketching or painting or whatever medium he wants to work in. The bare minimum of his artistic success should be that he puts in the hours to develop his skills and get attention for his art because the art is actually good, and not just because he's rich. But who are we kidding? There is no such thing as true meritocracy under capitalism.
Would you like a companion?
What? Of course I would not.
Hold on. Just wait a moment. Something very cute is about to happen.
Because I'm apparently free?
I have said numerous times that I want to see more of Benedict and Will developing a friendship, but I hope we also get to see more of Benedict and Eloise having heart-to-hearts in season 3, because I feel like they've set Benedict up to be no stranger to indulging in alcohol, and he's clearly emotionally unwell at the end of this season after leaving art school and finding out Antony was being sneaky behind his back. Maybe he starts drinking too much, acting messy, and not in a fun way, which might be entertaining to watch, but he also needs to get it together, and Eloise could be the one to knock some sense into him.
It's as if we sit among the stars.
What is wrong with you?
When Antony is having his heart-to-heart with Gregory, he talks about how their father shared Gregory's love of a prank.
He wants to put glue in Benedict's shoes.
This means that Benedict, like Antony, remembers his father, which is understandable since, as far as we can tell, they're not that far apart in age, though we never actually saw Benedict in those flashback scenes. But that also means that we haven't really explored the emotional toll of the loss of Edmund on Benedict. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are some wounds that are festering in their own way, since Benedict is the one performing emotional labor for anyone and everyone else in this family, but little to no one ever reciprocates for his benefit. There is a lot of material to potentially work with for his season. He's even looking out for Eloise at this party.
You have come thus far this season. It would be a shame for you to turn back now.
Steady.
But we've still got one final showdown for Benedict in season 2.
I've decided to leave the academy.
What?
Oh boy, here we go.
I'm just scoot on over and let you whack him. Get him again. Get him for me.
I know about your donation, brother. You were trying to help in your own misguided way. Perhaps because you sense the truth, which is that I'm simply not good enough.
Yes, you are, Benedict. You want to know why it's taken so long to finish this video? It is a chore to watch the most emotionally generous character on this show get his artistic spirit and joy crushed for hours in so many rewatches done in close succession.
Benedict, stop. You're beginning to sound like me.
Oh, so now you've finally reached a point of stopping all that self-flagellation because you've fallen in love with Kate? Because you've finally taken into account the wisdom of characters like Benedict and Violet, who have been trying to make you see sense for 8 episodes, but it's too late now.
If you want to paint, paint. It is one of your many talents. Chief among them, your natural gift for seeing what others need, even when they cannot see it themselves.
Antony, you have beaten the joy out of Benedict. You have broken his spirit to the point that realistically it's probably going to take a while for him to heal from these wounds. Or knowing the Bridgerton writers, they will have him bounce back like elastic as if none of this trauma happened to him when season 3 opens. Someone get Jojo on the phone, because your words have come too little too late, Antony. Antony isn't wrong with what he says, though. It's what any Benedict fan has probably known already, because we are the ones that are paying attention to him. All of the times I've said emotional labor in this video, and now even Antony has finally figured out that Benedict performs it constantly. He might not use that exact phrase, it's not exactly period typical vernacular, but your natural gift for seeing what others need, even when they cannot see it themselves, sounds fairly close to me to what I've been saying for this entire video. Benedict can make you laugh, he can give you advice, he can be your confidant, he can party with you, he can listen while you vent. It doesn't matter. Whatever you need, Benedict will do for you. How exactly are there not more people clamoring for him to have his turn in the main coupling of a season of Bridgerton? Season 2 has a sad finale for Benedict. We finally see Antony wake up and understand the depths of what Benedict has to offer as a human being, but by now it's too late. He has bullied his brother about his art all season like a mean hypocrite. And you just see Benedict shaking his head in disbelief.
It is a gift it has taken me far too long to recognize, but I would not have done if it were not for you.
The wound is too fresh. He is still in pain from this revelation of Antony's actions, and that betrayal is further compounded by the constant demeaning of Benedict's passion and pursuit of art. What did you think was going to happen, Antony? You just woke up one day and decided to be nice and thought that it would erase everything you've ever done that was mean? It doesn't work that way.
Enjoy the rest of your evening, brother.
Putting all the hyperbole aside about fictional characters in a fictional universe, I've clearly been thinking a lot about Benedict Bridgerton for months now and why exactly it is that I root for him as much as I do. The jokes and general humor and playfulness are charming, of course, but beyond that, I suppose we'll have to get a little bit philosophical. The appeal of the romance or rom-com genre is not just about seeing attractive people be hot and fall in love with one another. It's also about the catharsis of seeing characters find things like acceptance, comfort, security, support. And these are things that don't always have to be rooted in romantic love. I would argue that those other things I just listed are appealing to an even broader spectrum of people than just those who want to watch romance or even find romance in their daily lives. The idea of someone holding on to traits like kindness and empathy in a setting that encourages the exploitation of others for your own gain. Where'd you get the zebras from, Queen Charlotte? Zebras are not indigenous to England, now are they? I want to see kindness win. I want to see empathy win. Because if kindness and empathy win, everybody wins. It can be terrific fun to watch a dramatic, messy couple like Kate and Antony do nonsense for 8 episodes straight because they need to work on themselves. But if you're stressed out by life, Benedict or someone like him is who you want around and thriving. Now, I know I've just spent hours talking about how much I like Benedict Bridgerton, but at the end of the day, he is a fictional character. If I finish this video and I post it, and then we fast forward a few months or a few years, and the actor who plays him or someone else who worked on the Bridgerton show gets exposed for being the worst, this video is not an endorsement of that. What I do endorse, though, is more people striving to strengthen their capacity for empathy and kindness, and having a great sense of humor about things the way that Benedict Bridgerton does on this show. I went back and forth about whether or not to significantly shorten this video, but eventually I just decided that I could go through everything sequentially and label things with timestamps so that people can skip around to different parts if they want to. I have zero intention of doing any other Bridgerton videos that are this long, unless it was something like an in-depth podcast-esque interview. But who are we kidding? Netflix are not about to book me, of all people, for an hour-plus long conversation with any of the cast or crew from this show.
It didn't even hurt. I'm
If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Maybe it took you a few different sessions to finally get through the whole thing, but I'm appreciative regardless. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I will also say an extra thank you to my $10 patron, CJD, for your support. And I will see all of you in future uploads, be they Bridgerton related or otherwise. See you in the next one. Bye.